People are now turning against rock star Marilyn Manson in droves, and for good reason. Multiple people have accused the rock star of some incredibly heinous things, with these accusations having come to a head thanks to former fiancé Evan Rachel Wood. While it was Evan Rachel Wood's testimony that finally got Marilyn Manson cancelled, the signs have been there throughout the rock star's decades-spanning career. From his multiple arrests to his penchant for Nazism, join Trender as we take a look at red flags we should have noticed about Marilyn Manson way sooner. When Marilyn Manson broke out onto the scene in the 1990s, he did so with an image that was designed to shock. While the artist might have been instantly taken off of the airwaves only a decade prior, the 1990s proved to be the perfect apathetic landscape to finally allow for such a shocking artist to be allowed with relatively open arms by the American audience. The thing that allowed Marilyn Manson's shocking behavior to be accepted by the audience was that everyone took it with a veneer of irony. For all intents and purposes, the artist was acting as a satire of himself. For this reason, the problematic behavior could be taken with a grain of salt. Marilyn Manson was coming onto the musical scene in the years following the breakout success of such controversial acts as Motley Crue, the kind of authentic rock stars that Marilyn's antics could be seen as a parody of. Rock stars engaging in problematic behavior was seen as the norm by the time Marilyn Manson broke out onto the scene in the 1990s, and his exaggerated persona allowed him to push the boundaries further. Though we now know that the worst crimes that Marilyn Manson has committed seem to have been in his own romantic relationships, his penchant for engaging in violently antisocial behavior was apparent from the start thanks to numerous onstage antics in the first decade of his career, many of which culminated in arrests and charges. Despite the fact that Marilyn Manson had been publicly engaging in problematic behavior for years, it was testimony from former fiancé Evan Rachel Wood that finally managed to get the rock star cancelled. According to Evan, Marilyn had groomed her starting when she was a teenager and then went on to abuse her severely during their relationship. Evan had shared stories of an unnamed former love interest that had traumatized her severely, and many had speculated that it was Marilyn Manson. The two had been publicly engaged, though their relationship eventually fell through. According to the two of them at the time, the pair had simply fallen apart. In 2009, Marilyn Manson said during an interview that he often fantasized about smashing Evan Rachel Wood's head in with a sledgehammer. Given that the two were still dating at the time, many found these comments egregious. However, given the rock star's penchant for saying bizarre things, everyone took it with a grain of salt. The two went on to publicly announce their engagement mere months later. When Evan Rachel Wood finally revealed that Marilyn Manson had been the unnamed previous love interest that had traumatized her so severely, numerous other women came out with their own accusations against the rock star. One such woman was burlesque artist Dita Von Teese, who had been married to Manson for a brief period. When the Me Too movement started making waves in the entertainment industry, Marilyn Manson was one of its first notable critics. Of course, most assumed that the rock star was just looking for attention in the wake of his dwindling popularity around the time period. However, it now seems that Marilyn's critiques of the movement may have been a bit more personal, given his penchant for sexual abuse. Marilyn's recent cancellation has been a long time coming, and many are wondering how the public allowed the problematic musician to slip through the radar for so long. Marilyn Manson was a rock critic before finding success as a musician in the 1990s. His time as a critic made him an expert on the shocking antics of musicians of the past, and he sought to top these antics in his own career. Marilyn made good on this promise instantly, with his image proving problematic in the eyes of parents from the beginning. After Marilyn's initial shockwave wore off towards the end of the 1990s, the artist found himself a mainstream icon in the new millennium, with much of his problematic public behavior becoming a thing of the past. While the rock star's number of arrests may have decreased going into the 2000s, it appears that's only because he switched his crimes from the stage to the bedroom. If you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to hit the like button to show your support. Also, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to be among the first to know when more awesome Trender videos are on their way. Over the course of the 1990s, the public tried to cancel Marilyn Manson numerous times for his shocking behavior to no avail. The rock star was blamed for the Columbine massacre, causing him to go on a PR campaign where he wrote a Rolling Stone essay that appeared in Michael Moore's documentary film, Bowling for Columbine. Marilyn managed to convince the public that there was a deeper side to his shocking persona, and that children weren't meant to emulate the more problematic aspects of his behavior. Just prior to the 1999 Columbine massacre, Marilyn had simultaneously received more controversy and more mainstream success than ever before with the release of his 1998 album, Mechanical Animals. Featuring a gilded nude image of him on the cover, the album's shocking cover caused many retailers to ban it from being sold. However, the shocking nature of the album's cover wasn't matched in its music, which was praised by critics for having a prog rock sound that was seen as being appreciably mature in comparison to the artist's prior industrial output. With the public's eventual acceptance of Marilyn's nude form on the cover of Mechanical Animals, as well as their acceptance that the artist hadn't been the cause of the Columbine massacre, it seemed that Marilyn's string of controversies was finally over. The artist eventually faded from popularity to a significant degree during the new millennium, with only the most diehard fans even remembering the rock star existed before his recent cancellation. Now, people are looking back and wondering what they ever saw in the artist in the first place. Marilyn Manson engaged in some incredibly shocking behavior on the stage during his early career. During one notorious concert early on in the musician's career, he had a pregnant-looking actress perform a mock abortion upon herself while lying on a Nazi flag. Many credit this performance with being what caused Marilyn to catch the attention of fellow industrial musician Trent Reznor, who had recently found mainstream success with his own musical project, 9 Inch Nails. Trent is a similarly controversial artist, having purchased the house that Sharon Tate was murdered in and recorded his early albums there. Marilyn Manson released his debut album through Trent Reznor's record label in 1994. That same year, Marilyn was arrested for masturbating on stage and peeing on people in the crowd of his concert. People had initially assumed that the artist was using some kind of prosthetic, but it turns out that he was doing the deed for real. When the audience realized what was going on, the authorities were called and Marilyn Manson was forced to spend a night in jail. A year later, Marilyn Manson cut himself on stage with a broken beer bottle so severely that the rock star still has the scar. Tactics like this led to the musician being ordained a minister in the Church of Satan by founding Satanist Anton LaVey. Marilyn Manson has always touted this title with childish glee, which is another problematic aspect of the singer's life that the public ignored for far too long. Marilyn took his Satanism so seriously that he even wrote a book about it, and he has always unabashedly referred to himself as an evil and chaotic person who loves to hurt people. Another problematic episode that went largely unnoticed by the public was when Marilyn Manson threatened to kill the editor of Spin. Marilyn apparently threatened to have the editor and his entire family killed before instructing his bodyguards to pin him up against the wall and give him a warning. This led to the editor suing Marilyn for several $1 million, to which the rock star countersued. A few years later, Marilyn Manson was performing at Ozfest when he grabbed a security guard and started rubbing his genitals against his face. The security guard was not pleased, and the act resulted in Marilyn being charged with charges of battery and sexual assault. While the judge went on to dismiss the sexual assault charges, he wasn't so dismissive of the charges relating to battery. Marilyn Manson admitted to the crime, though his only repercussion was that he had to pay a fee totaling only $4,000. At the time, Marilyn acted remorseful about the incident. Following this, Marilyn's onstage antics became decidedly less problematic. However, his relationships certainly didn't. Besides all of the aforementioned red flags, there's also the fact that Marilyn Manson had apparently always loved to collect Nazi memorabilia, and has a history of saying the N-word. Despite all of the many red flags that Marilyn Manson had been flaunting at the public since the beginning of his musical career, the artist somehow managed to avoid cancellation until only recently. Now it's time to hear from you. Did you know that Marilyn Manson was once arrested for masturbating on stage and that he was sued for threatening to have the editor of Spin killed? As always, like this video to show your support, and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you'd like to be among the first to know when more awesome Trender videos are on their way.